Persona 5, the game that pushed the series into mainstream and the game that has spawned many spin-offs. So when yet another P5 spin-off was teased in 2021 and announced in 2023, I was cautious to say the very least. I'm a fan of the original P5 and especially love Royale with its third semester. However, the idea of yet another spin-off was a big turn-off for me. However, in 2024, when the game was released in China, it was met with some pretty good feedback from the CN players, but until Global arrived, I was still cautious but somewhat excited. That was until the release of P5X globally on the 26th of June, and honestly, I was very wrong. This isn't just another spin-off, it's more like its own Persona game. So let's see if I have a change of heart and also answer the question, should you play Persona 5 The Phantom X? Well, let's get into the review and find out. I've always thought that P5 had the weakest story out of the mainline entries. It wasn't bad by any means, but it did fail to grip me the same way the previous mainline titles did. So how does the story for a spin-off hold up? Wow, honestly, this might be a bit of a hot take, but I really enjoyed it. It's nothing special by any means, and some plot points were a bit dumb. However, for a live service game, they've done a really great job at adapting the message of Persona 5. The first villain may seem a little bit silly and realistic at first, but if you look into things, you will know that body slamming or butsukuri otoko is a massive issue in Japan, and is considered a form of sexual harassment, so it's a real issue there, and it's linked to incels and misogyny, which I won't spoil much, and I won't elaborate further, but that's a big message in the first arc, and it was also in the base game. If the goal of Persona 5 is to shed light on corruption of all kinds, then I believe they've done a great job at it. But now, without getting into too much detail, let's just go into my full, spoiler-free thoughts. Starting off with the positives, there's a stellar cast of Japanese voice actors and a lovable cast of characters to go alongside it, and I really appreciate that the cast of the original game isn't very important or focused on here. The story presentation is also great, with a mix of gameplay, cutscenes, dialogue, and tutorials within the first few hours. The story, though very familiar at first, does stand out as its own thing once you get past the first chapter, and you also get to see little glimpses of something different and bizarre happening during the story through some sort of visions, and I'm really intrigued to find out what this means for the future of the game's story. And overall, the story builds off of what Persona 5 created, and it becomes its own thing. It honestly feels like a completely new Persona game. It still has that classic mature tone with that hint of comedy sprinkled in. Though the story presentation is brilliant, the pacing is not. Sure, the first few hours get you right into things and has you learn the basics very quickly. After you progress past a certain point, however, you'll hit with some heavy level barriers, but to progress to the next story point, you need to level up 10 times, which could take multiple days for most players, especially casuals, which basically cuts you off from most of the content until you get to that specific level. Now, this is pretty standard for gachas, but I've never understood why it's on the first chapter. If they want you to actually get invested and, enjoy the game, they should never cut you off at any point during the first chapter, because that's your first introduction to the game. And if you are cut off halfway through, and you've got to do all this boring, grindy stuff, it's gonna, turn people away from actually finishing that level barrier and progressing. And they probably lost a few players from this. This game came out a year ago in China, so I'm not going to excuse them for this because it's something that should have been rectified beforehand. I also must say that the first palace is way too long for a first dungeon. If you're a Persona fan, this is not an issue, and honestly I love the first dungeon. There's a ton of puzzles, it's got that little hint of symbolism in, its themes, and I don't really think this is an issue for Persona fans, but for new players, I don't think this is ideal, as it may make the game feel boring at first and leave them a little lost. Overall, I really enjoyed the story. The first chapter is great in terms of presentation and virtually everything else, but the pacing is ruined by punishing level barriers. Though once you get past that barrier, the game really does open up, and chapter 2 is excellent so far. I honestly prefer chapter 2 to the first 3 palaces in the original P5, that's a bit of a hot take, but whatever. I also love the characters, plot points, and there's honestly a lot to capture your interest here, but it takes a lot of time to even get to the best parts of the game, and that should not have been a problem since this game did come out a year ago in China, and these issues should not exist anymore. Without any more delay, let's move on to our next topic. It's no surprise that the combat in this game is great. I mean, it's a Persona game, but what I did not expect was that the combat system is even better than P5R's system, and there's honestly zero complaints from me here. It's got that classic stylish vibe with its HUD, plus those smooth animations, and everything just flows together nicely. It takes the P5R combat system and completely refines it. It's got just about everything that made it great originally, but also includes some new unique takes on the system. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with what's returned. Well, firstly, baton passes and all-out attacks are still here, and the same goes for a majority of the mechanics from P5R, but with a few adjustments to all of these features to better suit a gacha game. However, none of these new features take away from the original system, it's just here to suit the game. There is one mechanic, however, that is missing from the game, and that's the duo Showtime ultimate attacks, but that really wouldn't work in a gacha game, so it's understandable why this system is not here. Something else that also makes a return is the protagonist's ability to wield multiple types of personas, just like in the mainline games, so even if you don't have a character for a specific element built, then you can just use your own personas to fit those elemental requirements. Of course, as with the other 3 modern Persona games, every other character in your party only has one persona to use, you cannot switch it, but this time the skills are already set for you, unlike in the previous entries where you can actually change certain skills. That's not here, they're more like their base abilities. Let's get into what's new. Unlike in the previous entries, P5X actually allows us to take control over Navigator skills instead of them triggering randomly like in P5 with Futaba. Navigators have access to 3 different types of support skills with cooldowns. There's also a few minor changes to things like skills, cooldowns, and some mechanics to suit a gacha game too. Overall, the combat of P5X is excellent. It shines in just the right places and remains stylish and satisfying. With beautiful animations and a variety of different skills, each character feels unique. The visuals are great, the mechanics are engaging, and the characters are fresh. It's got a lot to love, especially with those new changes. There is more to speak about regarding this topic later, but for now, let's take a break. A big part of modern Persona is the social sim aspect, so how does it hold up here? Well, honestly, it's brilliant. There's no time constraints unlike in the mainline games where you have to adjust to the in-game calendar schedule, so you don't need to worry about missing anything in managing your time. There's honestly a lot to unpack here, so let's get into it. P5 was always missing one big thing, and that was the club activities. With the removal of school clubs, I didn't feel a sense of community, unlike with P4 where the school clubs really made the community feel lively. But in P5X, school clubs finally make a return, and they are now interactive. There are only 2 available as of right now, so here are the 2 clubs that you can join. Football Practice, which contains a minigame where you need to score goals and work on your precision, and Band Club, which allows you to rock it out by playing a rhythm game, absolutely packed with Persona original music. The football minigame isn't anything special, but it is pretty cool once it starts opening up, and it's a nice addition. On the other hand, the rhythm game mode is exceptional. It takes the same mechanics from Persona 5 Dancing and perfects the system, with a variety of different tracks to play across many difficulties. Apart from school clubs, you can also study at the library, and you may occasionally have some classroom interactions. But for now, let's get into daily life activities. During your free time, you have access to a wide variety of activities, ranging from part-time jobs to interactive experiences. You can go watch a film, play at the batting cages, get underpaid at McDonald's, look after your mind and body at the gym, have a good soak, and to top it all off, you can read a book at home. There's a lot to do with these activities, and they are enjoyable. You could do daily activities 5 times a day, using daily points which have a cap of 20. Each activity costs 1 point, but if you want to get more rewards, you can consume 3 at a time. It's a great system that interprets the social sim gameplay and blends it with a player-friendly stamina system. And finally, it wouldn't be a modern Persona game without the ability to socialize with your companions. This time the system is called Synergy. I honestly have no idea why they keep changing its name, but whatever. The system in this game is honestly my favorite use of the system so far. It's less punishing with those time constraints, which allows you to get to know every one of your companions without any stress. There aren't many available just yet, but the cast of characters to hang out with will expand over time per update. This time you have more freedom with these hangout events, and they also cost 1 free time point, and honestly they have been pretty enjoyable so far. They haven't had the same effect on me as the previous game's social links, but it's still pretty early on for me to fully decide my thoughts. But one thing to note down is the fact that these social links have a max level of 20 instead of 10, which means you get to have more time to spend with these characters, and you can even romance some of them. There isn't much else I can add here that hasn't already been said by others, but it's a nice additional feature for those who love slice of life. Overall, the social sim aspect of Persona just keeps on improving, and in P5X the system is at its best, and it's very expansive. There's so much to do in this game, but it doesn't feel bloated. These tasks don't take too much time. and it's just fun, raising your social stats and unlocking new activities and hanging out with a diverse cast of characters. And I'm just super excited to see this system expand in the future with new updates, especially once we get that fishing minigame. It's a brilliant system and it just keeps on improving in every single title. I do think that some of the social links were less, interesting as the mainline games, but of course that's going to be the case because those are complete products. It's just nice that these are here, and it's a cool feature that I think most gacha games should have, because you have these really cool characters that you don't really get to learn about outside of character trailers and maybe a few moments within the story. It'll be nice to see this in other games, but I very much doubt it. I'm just glad it's here. Moving on to our last topics, I just want to quickly touch on the events. The only actual event we've currently got ongoing is the P5 Collab event Part 1, which by the way is brilliant. It's nothing insane, it's just a fun little crossover, but it's done right. Other than that, we also have our usual Gacha events, which are like the daily logins, drop rate boosts, and some rewards, and there's some additional events that have been added in with version 1.1, but nothing crazy. I don't want to go into depth here, but going off of the P5 event, I'm excited for the future, especially because this is just part 1 of the collab, and it's nice to be exploring the first palace again, but as a scaled down version. It's a really intriguing way of doing things, and a great example of how to do a collab correctly. So far the events have been great. It's a nice mix between gameplay, story, rewards, and it's just enjoyable. Mementos is back and better than ever, and it's now actually engaging with multiple things to find, collect, and kill. It comes with a variety of different shadow types to seek out and destroy, and each level expands as you upgrade your rail level, and there's a ton to explore. And of course, palaces are also located within the mementos, allowing you to freely explore them at any time, even after beating them. These new additions are great, and I really hope to see more changes in the future, but for now they've successfully made me feel positive things about mementos of all things. It also wouldn't be a gacha game without daily grinding, but this time it's not tedious, as you can consume stamina up to 6 times in one go, allowing you to efficiently grind without taking up too much of your time. It's a good system and it's simple too. There's not too many resources to grind as of yet, and building your characters isn't overly complicated. All of your mats are located in mementos, all within one realm, making your trip quick and efficient. Palace exploration is expansive with lots of loot to find, puzzles to solve, and areas to explore with many branching paths. The first palace, though a bit too long, is great for exploring after beating chapter 1, and there's a lot to find in both palaces. They also both have excellent level design, with an aesthetic that makes them both stand out, and mechanics that are unique to each palace. It's always nice seeing the effort they put into the environments, making sure it reflects the desires of those who own them. The details are fascinating, and the level design is masterclass. And finally, endgame is exceptional here, with multiple modes and many challenges, with a variety of rewards, ranging from school challenges, roguelikes, DPS checks, and guild challenges. Each challenge feels different, and making sure you have the right characters and personas equipped is key. I love the endgame, which is rare for me, as there's a lot to do, and you'll never be bored. It makes sure that you'll never have nothing to do. This game is absolutely packed for the content, ranging from slice of life activities to challenging endgame, which just makes gameplay feel way more rewarding and constantly engaging. And to top it off, you've also got the Thieves' Den, which you can freely explore, and you can equip certain things to help out your characters in the actual game that will give you bonus rewards or bonus damage and things like that. It's awesome. I love the gameplay loop, and it's just nice to see a gacha game that has already such a complete gameplay loop instead of something that's obviously very unfinished. It feels finished here, and it's excellent. Of course, you can't spell gacha well without gacha, so let's get into the gambling side of things. Well, this is where the game has a massive problem, and I know what some of you might be thinking. Well, of course, it's bad financial decisions here we're speaking about. Whilst yes, that is the case, as always, we are a free-to-play player, so we'll be reviewing this gacha system on how free-to-play friendly it is. I'm not a debt calculator. So, is it free-to-play friendly? Well, absolutely. I got 200 plus pulls within the first week of release, and that amount keeps stacking up. And there's a lot of rewards that you get just for logging in. However, there is one big issue, and that's the fact that global players are getting a whole lot less rewards than Chinese players. For example, they get 300 gems for compensation, we get 100, which is barely even a pull. You can get a weapon banner pull for that, but you can't get a character pull. They also got a free 5-star in 1.1, and we did not. We are also unable to redeem any of the codes. Now, if this was just the compensation, then I can kind of give them a pass as maybe an error, but this just shows clear favoritism, and with no response from the global team, it's becoming pretty obvious to me that, and other players, that they could not care less, and this is very much on purpose. Now, it isn't too late for them to change this despite the awful reviews over the past few days, because they can still take things back and compensate us and stop doing this in future updates, but so far there has been no accountability or acknowledgement of these issues, and that's super scummy, so this will have to affect my final rating for the game. You should always put your players first, otherwise what the hell are you trying to accomplish? This can be patched, and I do believe even despite the awful reviews over the past few days, it went from like a 80% positive review game to like a 40%, which is kind of crazy. It's deserved, trust me. I hate when Gacha developers do this, and it's becoming more and more common to screw over global players. Don't do this, it's silly, and you're obviously destroying your own game. Why do it? I don't understand it. And even if the rewards are still brilliant in comparison to other gacha games, that does not change the fact that this is clear favoritism and yet again another way to screw over global players. I love this game and I don't want it to fail, but if it does, then it deserves its downfall. And because of this, I'm less inclined to speak about the other topics and the aspects of this game that I enjoyed. So let's just move on to the final verdict, because if they aren't going to acknowledge us, then why should I acknowledge them and praise them any further? Persona 5X is a great game that had an excellent release but was shortly ruined after the release of 1.1, and because of this one massive issue, it drags the whole entire game down and sucks the life out of it. It's ironic that a game about corruption and taking advantage of the weak is managed by hypocrites that do the exact same thing and don't care for their player base. The devs have done a great job at making a game that adapts P5's messages but stands out as its own product and game. But yet again, because of higher-ups, their quality product has turned into yet another scummy example of greed. It's a shame, because the game is fun and the story is pretty good too. Sure, it's nothing game-changing and pales in comparison to other Persona games, but it's great in its own way. The events are fun, the gameplay is stellar, and there's so much to love about the game. And the game itself is genuinely gorgeous. I found my jaw dropping at the visuals multiple times. It also ran really well on other lower-end devices. There's a plethora of side content to clear, and the game will always keep expanding, and that's brilliant. The characters are also really nice. The designs are great, the style, the graphics, everything is just nice. The soundtrack is quality too, with some original music and returning tracks from Persona 5. We've got a quality product here, but the game isn't out without its issues though, as it does have awful pacing, painful level barriers, and a scuffed translation in places, and it also does have a few other issues. So I will have to give Persona 5 The Phantom X a 75% on the Revs review meter. It could have been much higher, but due to the poor treatment of its players and other issues, it's dragged down. I'll be returning to this game for yet another review in version 2.0, as I missed a lot of content in this review because I was sick. This was meant to be a review for 1.0, but obviously because I got sick, I had to, incorporate a bit of 1.1 too, and we'll have to see if the devs can fix these issues and give us compensation by version 2.0, so you'll see in that review if the game's changed. But in the meantime, if you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any feedback or criticism, let me know in the comments, it really helps. And with that, I'll be seeing you in the next review. Thank you for watching.
It's like getting stuck on my face when I'm down on the ground. Do I survive the worst, but the worst has yet to come. And I don't do this to me now, I'm cold.